Welcome, everyone, to our Information First Governance Road Trip for 2026. Our first stop is Paper Planes. Paper, where it all started in Content Manager. So welcome. Like I said, we are kicking off a summer road trip for 2026. And instead of just doing a single webinar, we had this idea to look at a structured journey across the summer where we could do a series of webinars that deal with today's information governance challenges that we're all facing. And hopefully, it works towards an in-person visit at either OpenText World in Orlando or possibly the ARMA InfoCon in Savannah, Georgia. We will probably be in attendance of both those events. We'd really like to see you, and hopefully we get to know each other as we're crammed into a van for the summer. Before I get any further, let me introduce my colleagues on the call. I have Eric Wold and Tamara Hoagland. Eric?
Hello, Eric Wold. I hope to welcome everybody into the road trip. I'm excited to be here, and thank you both for inviting me. I call shotgun, by the way.
Fair enough.
That's pretty funny. Tamara Hoagland here as well. Excited to join the guys here. President of Information First and owner of this merry band of misfits. We love records management, and we welcome you on this road journey. So we're excited to get things kicked off, and I will tag it over to you, fellas. Let's roll.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Tamara. Okay, I went off bandwidth just to save, I went off camera to save my bandwidth, and we can get started. All right, so where are we? Okay, so the whole point of introducing our staff is we do want you to get to know us as a company. So throughout the summer, more and additional staff are going to come in and share their stories and contribute. So we've got a few this week. A lot of them are in the chat now as well. You may see them there. So what we're trying to do is break our themes into kind of business evolution that records have. We're going to start with paper, where it all began. We're Trim, if anyone still knows Trim began. Then we're going to move in. Our next webinar on July 9th is going to look at the Office integration. So we're going to focus on the integration with Outlook, which is changing, as we all know. We're going to look at Teams integration. We're going to look at Word and possibly even OneDrive. So a little bit of that O365. I know a lot of us out there are curious to see how it looks, especially with we make that switch from old legacy Outlook to the new Outlook. On August 6th, we're going to look at customizations. That's a big demand lately, just writing scripts that go above and beyond the natural power of Content Manager. And we'll look at some things that some of our staff have done and some of the business solutions we've solved for customers and ideas for other integrations that we could potentially come up with. On September 3rd, we're going to focus on reporting and getting information or getting value out of your content management installation. So we're going to take a look at the business intelligence tool. We're going to look at what you can possibly do just inside of Excel with Power BI or Visual Basic or Power Query. So just kind of how do we make our data and the information Content Manager has valuable to make actionable decisions based on that data. And then October 1st, leading up to those two events that I talked about earlier, we're going to look at AI and have an open discussion. We're really looking for feedback on what you're expecting from an AI system, how it could possibly work, and what we could possibly do to help facilitate some of those requests. Okay, so we're going to start with paper. Paper in this highly digital world, it's still important. It still operates in companies with their core processes. And we're going to look at the challenges you may face in a paper world. Along the way as well, today we're going to have some surveys. I got to get my little survey window up so I can send them out to you because we're going to lead into our first survey now just to get an understanding. So the slide on the screen right now is just the slide. I'm going to post this survey right now. Here we go. And this is just looking to see what is your current situation with respect to paper. Are you paper only? A little bit of paper, mostly paper, a little bit of digital. Balanced? Are you mostly digital with some paper, or are you just digital only? I'll give you about 30 seconds to fill out the survey.
I think I have. I think I'm digital only, but I think I'm. I have paper that hasn't been touched for I know since I moved into this house, and that's been 10 years. So I think I need to execute some retention schedules on my own paper.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you, Eric. I'm mostly paper. Maybe I'm balanced. I get a lot of e-bills now. from my from my companies and my bank statements and stuff. So they never.
It looks as though we're right in the majority is balanced paper and digital. So there's a balance in there, but there are people leaning towards mostly digital.
Yeah,
and nobody's digital only, and nobody's paper only.
That's good. That's excellent. Obviously, I know that we have some customers that purely use Content Manager for electronic capture, and we have other customers that use it purely for paper. And sometimes they don't know that Content Manager can support the other, which is always great to go down that journey. All right, I'll close that one, and now we'll get started. So, what is the reality of paper today? There's obviously a lot of talk about going paperless. I mean, we've been hearing about going paperless for so long. Unfortunately, paper just has not disappeared. What may have changed along the way is where it lives. It's shifted out of or into filing rooms, central filing rooms, departments, storage areas. I've even been on site with customers and they're in the hallways, filling up walls and making cubicles out of the boxes. So paper is still there. It's probably not going to go away. It does lead to a bit of a hidden storage. With all this paper everywhere, we don't really know where it is. We don't have that one place to go and get it. It's kind of hard to manage. And without an electronic management system, it's even harder. So without that system, what do we rely on? We rely on people who know what was there, know where it goes, know what to do with it. But what happens when they leave or when the roles change? That expertise goes away as well. That leads to a lot of information being invisible to the organization. If you can't find it, if you can't retrieve it, it's not there. If you don't know it exists, it's not there. So it's hard for you to get the information, make decisions, and act on those. It creates gaps in your electronic process or your workflows. A lot of our workflows these days are either all electronic or a hybrid, and then those stages that require some sort of physical activity can slow down that process and can cause process gaps.
It's like the trunk in a van on a family road trip. Like everything's in there, but no one really knows exactly where, and it really depends on who packed the car. So it's like it might be somewhere in the back seat, but maybe people are like, we'll just find it at the next stop, and just people keep going along without having exactly what they need to have.
I love that, Eric. That's hilarious. It's true, though. It is very true. All right. So with this kind of dispersed storage area, we have another challenges. We have data, as I said, or documents and records, as I said, scattered everywhere through your organization. It's very hard to find, and that footprint might be wider than you realize. There's no single reliable view of where to go and get information on that data. You might be a person here or some expert who knows that. So the storage approaches can also be inconsistent between your departments. One department might choose to handle their records one way and another department's doing it a different way. So we don't have compliance between departments. It gets a little more challenging. So without that RMS standard.
Sorry, I was going to say, it's like everybody packed, but no one coordinated. So there's stuff in there, but like it's not going to fit cleanly, and obviously it's going to cause chaos for the driver.
That's true. And then when you add in the fact that a lot of organizations are sending their records offsite to a storage provider such as Iron Mountain, then that could even make the problem worse, because now your physical records have left the building, kind of like Elvis did, I guess. And you're relying on these external systems and processes as well to find your records and retrieve them. So control in this if you don't have a records management system, control becomes very manual. We have spreadsheets. Maybe we've got clipboards with sign-out sheets. Or back in the library days, we have a little library card that goes in the back of something. It just becomes hard to track and maintain that, and the consistency sometimes fails.
And it's like a road trip with no map, right? You start driving, but like, where are we getting to if we don't exactly have a direction for some of these things?
That's so funny. All right, this is going to take us to our second survey. So with respect to paper in your world today, what are your biggest challenges, especially for those who answered that they are primarily a paper world? Is it finding files, tracking movement? Is it the storage? So let me just get that next one up here, and I will launch it right now. There it comes. Oh, I better do that. According to my wife, I just can't find files. So I'll put that one in. Oh, got a tie. Oh,
I guess it is good that the disposal part is coming, because all those physical records. I mean, some of the groups that we have, they've had Content Manager for 25 years, and there's absolutely retention schedules less than 25 years, and some of that stuff came in as paper, so it's been living there longer than that. So for the last decade or so, this stuff needs to go, and so that's good that you want to cut down on the cost of storage locations.
Excellent. Okay, so now that we've got our information potentially managed, what's the next big challenge we might face with physical records? Obviously, requesting information. How do we get it? Now, we know in Content Manager there are built-in features such as the request module. We have the concept of the home and owner. We can track where our records physically are. In a physical world, if we don't have that, requests become, who do I email? Who do I contact? How long is it going to take? There could be a lot of friction in that whole process in getting information. You need to know who has the information you're looking for. What if you don't have that information? If you don't know the right person or who manages a box, it's hard to get to. It's hard to find it and pull that from your repository, wherever that may be, whatever file room that might be.
Or from the back seat.
Therefore,
right? You're in the car, you're trying to find something while you're driving, and then somebody's got to pass it up from the back. That is, you never know what you're actually going to get.
That is true. That is true. And so, and with that, retrieval times can be unpredictable. It takes a long time to find the right person, make the request. They have to make that request depending on where that file is. And it just adds time and burden to getting records in a timely manner. This can also lead to just a breakdown in the system. Files can go missing. They can be signed out and not returned, or they could be lost. I mean, that's going to happen with or without an electronic system. It's probably a little more likely when we're tracking the process manually versus an electronic system that keeps track of that. It can send you reminders when things are due, control borrowing limits and extensions and things related to that record checking out. There can be limited visibility into who has the record. Maybe somebody just did a favor or borrowed it or didn't document it. Things can easily go lost. It's hard to keep track. With a records management system such as Content Manager, we have an audit log. We have a movement history. We know exactly where that record is. It could even be in transit. It could be in a location. All of that is managed. Very difficult to do manually in a physical records world. Okay, that's going to take us to our next survey, because what we're trying to do now is how do we get that physical storage into electronic world? How do we digitize our records? So I'm going to throw up the next survey. And this survey is just asking us, where are you in your digitization efforts, if any? Is there any desire internally to kind of convert some of those records to electronic records? Are you considering it? Are you progressing it? I would say I am almost digital already.
I could jump in your bow as well.
Yes, please.
Tamara here. There's so many of our customers that have a need still for physical objects. We have some of them that are moving things between a library or an archive, and those physical objects are part of the record. They are the record. And so just because you've got paper or a physical object doesn't necessarily mean it will go digital, but obviously a single software to be able to manage both is hugely helpful. So it'd be really interesting to see how much of that you're working to digitize, and if there's any of that that really just needs to stay in a physical or paper form for some reason.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tamara. I know we have a lot of pharma, and they're tracking specimens and objects like that. I know that we're doing a lot of work for mortgage organizations, and it's in their world they want to digitize for ease of access. So there's lots of different reasons, and possibly not paying the storage fee at the provider that scanned them. So get them digitally and make it a little easier to interact with, a little more informative, and save a little bit of money. Okay, so it looks like everybody is kind of actively scanning in one form or another. And I'll follow-up questions we would have with there's obviously in-house scanning, and then there's possibly third-party scanning. And then we have another question coming up. It's going to focus on what you're looking for in a scanning project. So back to our physical world. One of the big things with records and records management is proper retention and being compliant. And that can become challenging back in that physical world that is unmanaged. Many organizations do have retention schedules, but when we start applying those to physical records, it doesn't necessarily translate cleanly and easy. What we end up seeing possibly is most people err on the side of caution and they don't want to delete. I mean, honestly, we hear that all the time. But in a physical world, people are more likely to keep records, which could, in a sense, lead you to being in compliant, that you're holding something you don't longer than you really need to. The same could be said potentially, maybe you panic and get rid of something before you should. So without having that clear retention policy and being able to apply that clear retention policy. The process for disposal obviously is physical. There's always going to be some sort of physical destruction when it talks to physical records, but managing the disposal process can be challenging without a system to aid you. If we think of our consignment reports, if we think of just tracking the auditability of when the record was disposed, how it was disposed, and having sign off on that, versus back to our analogy earlier where you potentially have one person in the office keeping track of something in an Excel sheet who's not really accurately managing the times and managing that record, it becomes challenging relying on that to be accurately captured. So the compliance becomes dependent on the people doing the right thing at the right time. That's harder to enforce than with an electronic system.
Mm-hmm. And if I'm playing backseat driver, no one remembers what we packed and why. And so there's a whole lot of things in there. Why are we still holding on to some of this stuff? And so if that person doesn't have it, a person doesn't have the person left the van, why are we still holding on to this stuff? Nobody even knows why it's here.
That's funny. Or chewing that piece of gum that you don't want to throw out for far too long.
Dude, stop.
maybe that too.
All right, that's funny. All right, we got two more surveys. So this one is we kind of just threw this in last minute because as we were talking about the scanning, is what is important to you in your scanning projects. And this is a survey that you're going to kind of rank. So you pick all of them. Where is this one? Oh, they're out of order. I have to scroll down to this one first. Apologies. Here we go. So this is a survey that you can drag and rank in the order of importance to yourself. So put the most important on top and the least important on the bottom, just so we can kind of get an understanding of when organizations are approaching a scanning effort, what is important to them. Interesting. I like that one. I'm just curious, can everybody see the results as they're happening?
Only after you submit.
Oh, okay. Because I think that's good if anyone was just seeing what your colleagues are, what the other attendees are, what challenges are facing them.
Yeah, feel free to add in any questions or comments in the Q&A section. You can post that and we can make some responses.
So OCR seems to be the big one, coupled with image quality. And why we're curious on that is obviously if you're embarking on a scanning project, those are two of the things that are going to drive the price up. Now, the prices we're talking potentially pennies a page, but still, getting that OCR step takes a little more resources, takes a little more time to get it. The accuracy becomes a factor. And then related to that, the image quality. Whether you're scanning at 150, 200, 300 DPI is going to ultimately possibly feed back and improve your OCR abilities as well. And then we added the sensitivity because obviously there is a lot of back scanning potentially happening, and how are we going to handle that information? I know, like I said, for a customer we're working with scanning mortgage documents, we know, we can imagine they're probably full of social security numbers. So obviously we want to be able to kind of track that, and once it gets digitized, monitor those and protect those. And of course, cost, because you're going to be weighing the differences between doing something in-house versus outsourcing. And there's a lot to scanning that people kind of don't think about initially. It's the preparation is huge. The staples, the orientation, the paper size, all of that kind of factors into the prep. Then you add in the speed of scanning and other considerations in that process. And then we have the post cleanup. What do we do with the boxes and the data? And I think that leads to the next question. So I'll kind of stop talking on that one until the question pops up. All right, so back to our physical journey, looking at our physical records. What are some of the other challenges? Obviously, paper records aren't as findable as we think of with respect to electronic records. I mean, we're so used to just potentially going to Content Manager, doing our search, getting a bunch of records, seeing the one we want in, getting any information that we sought from that record. Very easy. It doesn't necessarily work like that in the paper world. Paper lacks that kind of searchability. You know, we can use things such as the metadata that's on it. And if we think to a box, we would have a box number. We might have a description of the contents. That's it. Maybe on the folder, we have a few things. So the metadata and the quality of that metadata becomes challenging in terms of searching. We have to know the records exist. Did I create it and I can go and retrieve it? Or how do I know it's out there if there's really nothing to search on? So that becomes a challenge in getting the information. Information can be fragmented as well. Again, when we go back to the situation where maybe different departments are handling their data differently, maybe they're capturing different metadata, that becomes hard to get that, because we rarely manage paper in a single location. It's all distributed throughout the organization. Maybe we're tracking it in spreadsheets, clipboards, sticky notes, etc. Finally, the slow response to audits can be harder. So, tracking all of this and being able to find these records, possibly for a FOIA request, possibly for an e-discovery session, without having that ability to quickly find and identify the records, it adds extra cost and labor in research and tracking and pulling back all that information. Wondering, who's Eric?
Oh, I was going to say that. I mean, not. You got to make sure everything gets in the car, and you don't have metadata to know it's there. Did everybody actually get the stuff in the car? Did everything make it in the car for the road trip? I don't know. I mean, I'll sit in the back seat and just.
I love it, Eric. I love it.
Wait till we get to the next section.
I feel like we're on a podcast. This is so cool.
Yeah, you guys are great. Should have brought popcorn.
All right, this takes us to our last survey. Yay! So this is just, what is your current approach to scanning paper? And we're kind of curious here in terms of what are you doing with the information after you scan it? So I'll launch that survey right now. So a lot of people scan and keep. I'm curious to see if my assumptions are still true. Oh, what I do? I think best practices would be scan and destroy.
That's the one I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
It's not always possible, but I think I remember it was like 20 years ago. Somebody said, "Yep, nope." They've officially said, you can get rid of the paper, but or a lot of time up to that, it was just nope. The paper's the official. Then it became the digital.
I do remember stories of people scanning, printing, storing, like triplicate, and I'm like, wow, very interesting use of resources. But
I can remember
for whatever
when we did
reason,
the Outlook integration they were printing emails, including their attachments, taking them to the scanner to scan them in so they could put them into Content Manager. And I was like, Why? Like, well, that's how we did it before they had a content manager software. They were scanning it to the file share, and so that's all they could do was print and scan. And I was like, well, it's already born digital. They're like, what? No, it was born digital. You can just drag and drop it, and that was amazing.
I think they should reboot The Office and put a scenario like that into The Office.
Oh, yeah.
I think that would be fantastic, just on the management of that.
That phrase, that's the way we've always done it. It can really cause potential problems in hindsight. Okay, I'm moving on, and that's great. This really helps us as an organization kind of understand, the current environment and attitudes towards the paper world. So, we've got this incoming wave of AI and do it for me, but to get to that point, we still got to tackle this paper problem. So your feedback is really helpful for us to figure out where we need to concentrate even our knowledge on and manage our expectations of what customers expect. So we really do appreciate that. And so here we are into that transition to digitization. One of the biggest things is just planning that effort. There's a lot you can do. We have vendors we work with that, such as Kofax and EasyScan, where, they're approaching and focused really on that scanning effort, identifying sectors of the document to pick out numbers or dates or names and addresses. Like that can all be done, and that's great because it becomes metadata that you're going to use in Content Manager, which, back to what I was talking about, makes searching easier, makes auditing easier, and all of those. So you definitely need to have a plan on that scanning effort and what you want to capture while you're doing that. Next, we want it to be consistent. It should be an approach that you're going to follow through each department, and hopefully the company has a direction, not individual departments. Now that might potentially change. Maybe HR might have different needs than the rest, so we can kind of work and understand with that. But if it's not even, it could cause a lot of problems and could add a lot of time to the analysis and the build. And then scanning without proper metadata. You don't want to go to all this effort and realize you didn't capture a significant piece of data, and kind of make the whole effort kind of in vain. So again, part of that analysis, part of that understanding of your data, and making sure that it can capture and retrieve and that metadata that you do require. And one of the beauties is the dual systems. And this is really great with Content Manager, as we all know, seamlessly manages physical and electronic records under one umbrella. So you can have a document in paper represented in Content Manager. You could have a digital electronic file right beside it. And a lot of our organizations are adopting a touch it and scan it approach. So now when I touch that physical record, I'll scan it and I'll attach it, and now I have two electronic records in Content Manager, all being managed and disposed of and retained in accordance with your retention on that particular folder. But without this approach, you're just going to keep on going down without you're going to keep battling that battle between that physical world and that electronic world.
And hopefully you think that you're going to realize that you're not just going to get a second car because not all your stuff fits in the first one, and do all the right disposition and digitization so that you're not keep adding additional cars, additional suitcases, or trying to transition between cars mid-trip. But if that has to happen, we want to be there for you, help you make through the trip without things dropping along the way.
And one of our challenges and one of the approaches we've done with organizations is establishing kind of an approach to digitization. A lot of the times, we don't need to reach back that far. We definitely have a point forward. So we're going to, in anything new, if we can capture it electronic, great. And then we might, crawl back 2 years of data, try to digitize that. But anything beyond then, especially when you start getting into your normal retention where I only got to keep it for another year, let's save the cost, the effort, and the time, and kind of manage those physical records to their natural disposition. And so whatever that buffer range is, coupled with the go forward plan, that's a good sound approach to managing your physical records, and probably cost efficient as well. So we're not just, spending money for stuff that we're just going to scan and literally destroy in Content Manager. All right, so bringing this all together, how do we survive in a physical world, in an electronic world, and kind of bring these things together? So when we look across it all, we want to make sure that we can account for storage, we can access to the records, being able to retain those records. Visibility is important. A records management tool such as Content Manager obviously can facilitate and fill that gap. By identifying our physical records as metadata, we're able to kind of do that search, find where things are, and track them. This leads to, go ahead, Eric, sorry.
I think you can see on here that if all these things don't get pulled together, we're going to be late. the car's probably going to break down. The risk and the cost of your road trip just keeps going up if you're not able to get things together. And that's why we can see some unhappy people on the road, and we want to be able to be there to get you guys going faster.
Well, some of that reminds me too, Eric, of a recent road trip where the RV just doesn't quite fit down that road because of the height, right? So having an expert like ourselves, we're like, don't go that way. I know that's what the map says, but don't do it. Don't follow the Google map into the lake, even though it says keep going. Like, stop. We've got some experience here. Let us help you. So that's a fun part for us, is taking what we've learned at other customers and applying it across the board into something else. Obviously, data security and privacy and all of those things are paramount to what we do. But, taking lessons learned from one company and allowing you to propel things forward is really a lot of fun for us.
So, yeah, just to kind of recap before we go, obviously, there is inefficiency if you're pure paper. Managing those can lower your risk, make you more compliant. We want to get rid of the inconsistency between within the paper world. If we could standardize our policies, our processes, and kind of blend that with the electronic world and manage it. And paper will always remain outside of the system, but we just have to kind of deal with it and understand it and work with it as best we can with such a tool. Kind of close off here. So here's kind of an overview of Content Manager, of all of the things it can do. And as I said at the beginning of the session, the journey this summer, every 4 weeks, hopefully we're going to meet, call your friends. We want to fill that van and get as many people in it as we can as we ride across country this summer. So if you go to our website, you can follow our progress this summer on the news page. So I came down from news, and there's our summer road trip. And we've just been able to post all of the buttons and all the sign up links for the rest of the series.